The Aftermath of Us, Chapters 12 and 13. Chapter 12, New Rhythms. The week following their engagement had been a whirlwind of phone calls, congratulations, and the surreal reality of planning a wedding while navigating the delicate dance of blending their lives completely. Marcus had officially moved in the weekend after Thanksgiving, bringing with him boxes of books, medical journals, and a coffee maker that made Alara's old one look like a toy. But it was the quiet moments, the intimate adjustments to their new reality, that had surprised her the most. The way Marcus would wake before his alarm and spend precious minutes just watching her sleep, his fingers tracing gentle patterns on her bare shoulder. The way she'd catch him reading bedtime stories to Leo with such tenderness that her heart would clench with overwhelming love. The way they'd learned to communicate in whispers and stolen glances when Leo was nearby, building anticipation for the moments when they could finally be alone. This particular morning, Alara woke to the soft sound of the shower running and the realization that Leo was still fast asleep in his room, a rare gift of uninterrupted time. The engagement ring caught the early morning light as she stretched, and she still felt a flutter of disbelief that this was her life now, that she was engaged to a man who loved her son as much as he loved her, who'd seamlessly woven himself into the fabric of their daily existence. The shower shut off, and she heard Marcus moving around in the bathroom. An idea formed in her mind, wicked and wonderful, and exactly the kind of spontaneous intimacy she'd thought was lost to her forever when she became a mother. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor, and padded to the bathroom door. Marcus was standing at the sink, a towel wrapped around his waist, his hair damp and his skin still flushed from the hot water. He caught sight of her in the mirror and turned, his eyes immediately darkening as they took in her sleep-tousled hair and the way her silk nightgown clung to her curves. "Good morning, beautiful," he said softly, his voice still rough with sleep. "Good morning, doctor." "Chen," she replied, stepping closer until she was close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "You're up early." "Early surgery," he explained, but his hands were already reaching for her, pulling her against him. "I was trying not to wake you." "I'm glad you did," she whispered, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. The kiss started gentle but quickly deepened, months of growing passion and the new freedom of their engagement making every touch feel electric. Marcus's hands tangled in her hair, and she could feel his body responding to her closeness. The towel around his waist did little to hide his desire, and she felt a familiar heat building low in her belly. "Leo?" he asked against her lips, always the responsible one. "Still sleeping," she assured him, her hands exploring the planes of his chest, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. That was all the encouragement he needed. His mouth found the sensitive spot just below her ear, and she had to bite back a moan as he kissed and nibbled his way down her neck. His hands slipped under the hem of her nightgown, his touch sending shivers of pleasure racing through her. "I love you," he whispered against her skin, his voice thick with emotion and desire. "Show me," she breathed, and he did. He lifted her easily, setting her on the bathroom counter, his hands gentle but urgent as he pushed the silk higher, exposing more of her to his hungry gaze. The cool marble against her skin was a stark contrast to the heat of his touch, and she arched into him as his mouth found hers again. They moved together with the desperate quiet of lovers who had learned to steal moments, every touch deliberate and intense. Marcus's hands mapped every curve of her body like he was memorizing her, and Alara felt herself coming apart under his attention. When he finally joined with her, it was with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. Not just physical pleasure, but the overwhelming emotion of being completely loved and cherished. Afterward, they held each other in the steamy bathroom, both breathing hard and grinning like teenagers who'd gotten away with something. "We're going to be late," Marcus said, but he made no move to let her go. "Worth it," Alara replied, pressing a kiss to his collarbone. The sound of Leo's voice calling, "Mama!" from his room broke the spell, and they reluctantly separated, sharing one more quick kiss before Marcus grabbed his clothes and Alara slipped back into her nightgown. "Tonight," Marcus promised, his eyes dark with promise. "Tonight," she agreed, already anticipating the evening ahead. The day passed in a blur of work and errands, but Alara found herself thinking about Marcus constantly. The way he'd looked at her that morning, the promises in his touch, the way he'd whispered her name like a prayer. By the time evening came, she was practically vibrating with anticipation. Leo had been unusually cooperative about bedtime, falling asleep almost immediately after his story. Marcus had been called in for an emergency surgery and wouldn't be home until late, leaving Alara alone with her thoughts and a restless energy that had her pacing the apartment. When she finally heard his key in the lock at nearly 11, she was waiting for him in the living room, having changed into a silk robe that left little to the imagination. "Hey," he said softly, dropping his keys on the table and taking in her appearance with obvious appreciation. "How was your evening?" "Long," she replied, standing and walking toward him. "I missed you." "I missed you too," he said, his arms coming around her automatically. Surgery ran longer than expected, and then there were complications. She silenced him with a kiss, pouring all her pent-up longing into the contact. He responded immediately, his hands fisting in the silk of her robe as he pulled her closer. "Leo?" he asked when they broke apart. "Fast asleep," she assured him. "Has been for hours." The smile that spread across his face was pure masculine satisfaction. In that case, he swept her up in his arms, carrying her toward their bedroom with a determination that made her laugh softly. But the laughter died in her throat when he set her down beside the bed and began slowly untying the belt of her robe, his eyes never leaving hers. "I thought about you all day," he said, his voice low and rough. "During surgery, between patients, driving home, I couldn't stop thinking about this morning, about how beautiful you looked, about how you felt in my arms." The robe slipped from her shoulders, pooling at her feet, and Marcus's sharp intake of breath made her feel powerful and desired in a way she'd never experienced before. "You're incredible," he whispered, his hands skimming over her skin with reverent touches. "I can't believe you're mine." "Prove it," she challenged, echoing her words from that morning. And he did, with a passion and tenderness that left them both breathless and clinging to each other in the aftermath. As they lay tangled in the sheets, Alara's head on Marcus's chest and his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her back, she felt a contentment so complete it was almost overwhelming. "I love our life," she said quietly, her voice muffled against his skin. "Even the parts where we have to be creative about timing?" he asked, amusement coloring his voice. "Especially those parts," she replied, tilting her head to look at him. "It makes it more intense, more precious." Marcus's smile was soft and full of love. "I never thought I'd be the kind of man who found stolen moments and bathroom counters romantic. And now? Now I think I could write poetry about bathroom counters," he said, making her laugh. They talked quietly until sleep claimed them, wrapped in each other's arms and the certainty that, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Chapter 13. Christmas Magic. December arrived with a flurry of activity that left Alara feeling like she was living in a romantic comedy. Wedding planning had begun in earnest, with Sarah appointed as maid of honor and Amy as an enthusiastic co-conspirator. They'd set the date for the following June, giving them time to plan properly while still feeling like they weren't waiting forever to officially become a family. But it was the everyday moments that continued to surprise her. The way Marcus had seamlessly integrated into their Christmas traditions while adding his own touches. He'd insisted on getting a real tree, spending an entire Saturday with Leo picking out the perfect Douglas fir, and then patiently helping him hang ornaments, while Alara watched from the kitchen, her heart full to bursting. The apartment had been transformed into a winter wonderland, with lights strung everywhere and Leo's handmade decorations given places of honor. Marcus had contributed a collection of medical-themed ornaments that made Alara laugh, tiny stethoscopes, and anatomically correct hearts that somehow managed to be both ridiculous and endearing. It was the week before Christmas when their carefully maintained balance was tested in the most delicious way possible. Leo had been invited to a sleepover at his daycare friend's house, his first ever, and something that had required extensive negotiations and preparation. Alara had packed his overnight bag 3 times, included detailed instructions about his bedtime routine, and called twice to check on him before Marcus finally took her phone away. "He's fine," Marcus assured her, pulling her onto the couch beside him. "Mrs. Patterson has raised 4 kids of her own. Leo is in excellent hands." "I know," Alara said, but she couldn't shake the strange feeling of having the apartment to themselves. "It's just, we've never been apart overnight before." "Never?" Marcus asked, surprised. "Never. Even when he was in the hospital with his broken arm, I slept in the chair beside his bed." She looked around the suddenly too quiet apartment. "I don't know what to do with myself." Marcus's smile was slow and full of promise. "I have some ideas." The first idea involved ordering takeout from their favorite Thai restaurant and eating it on the living room floor while watching a movie that wasn't animated and didn't feature talking animals. The second idea involved a bottle of wine that had been a housewarming gift and had been waiting for a special occasion. By the time they'd finished dinner and were halfway through the wine, Alara was feeling relaxed and giddy in a way she hadn't experienced since before Leo was born. The freedom to talk without spelling out words or speaking in code, to touch each other without worrying about little eyes watching, was intoxicating. "Dance with me," Marcus said suddenly, standing and extending his hand. "There's no music," Alara pointed out, but she was already taking his hand. "There's always music," he replied, pulling her into his arms and beginning to sway. They moved together in the soft light of the Christmas tree, and Alara felt like she was floating. Marcus hummed softly in her ear, some melody she didn't recognize, but that seemed perfect for the moment. His hands were warm on her back, and she could feel the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. "I love you," she whispered, the words feeling both familiar and new. "I love you too," he replied, his voice rough with emotion. "More than I ever thought possible." The kiss that followed was different from their usual stolen moments, slower, deeper, full of the luxury of time and privacy. Marcus's hands tangled in her hair, and she could taste the wine on his lips, sweet and intoxicating. "Bedroom?" he suggested against her mouth. "Bedroom," she agreed. But they didn't make it that far. Somewhere between the living room and the hallway, Marcus pressed her against the wall, his mouth finding the sensitive spot on her neck that made her knees weak. Her hands fumbled with the buttons of his shirt, desperate to feel skin against skin. "Here," she breathed, and he didn't argue. He lifted her easily, her legs wrapping around his waist as he supported her against the wall. The cool surface against her back was a stark contrast to the heat of his body, and she arched into him as his mouth found hers again. They made love with an urgency born of too many interrupted moments and the rare gift of complete privacy. Every touch was electric, every kiss a promise, every whispered endearment a declaration of forever. When they finally collapsed together on the hallway floor, both breathing hard and laughing at their own impatience, Alara felt like she was glowing from the inside out. "We didn't even make it to the bedroom," she said, her head pillowed on Marcus's chest. "Next time," he promised, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Next time we should probably use the bed like civilized people." "Where's the fun in that?" Marcus asked, making her laugh. They eventually made it to the bedroom, where they spent the rest of the evening exploring each other with the kind of thorough attention that was usually impossible with a toddler in the house. Marcus worshipped her body with his hands and mouth, bringing her to heights of pleasure she'd forgotten were possible. And when she returned the favor, taking her time to show him exactly how much she loved and desired him, his response was everything she could have hoped for. Later, as they lay tangled in the sheets, Alara's head on Marcus's shoulder and his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare skin, she felt a contentment so complete it was almost overwhelming. "I should probably call and check on Leo," she said, but made no move to reach for her phone. "He's fine," Marcus assured her. "And if there was a problem, they would call us." "I know, it's just—" "You're a good mom," Marcus said, understanding without her having to explain. "The best mom. But you're also a woman, and you deserve to have time for yourself. For us." "I'm not used to it," she admitted. "For so long it was just Leo and me. I forgot that I could be anything other than his mother." "You're so much more than that," Marcus said, tilting her chin up so she had to look at him. "You're brilliant and funny and strong and beautiful. You're the woman I fell in love with, the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. And yes, you're also Leo's mom, and that's part of what I love about you. But you're not just that. Tears pricked at her eyes. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Good scared or bad scared? Good scared. The kind of scared that comes from having something so precious you can't imagine losing it. You're not going to lose me, Marcus said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to get married and raise Leo together, and maybe give him a little brother or sister someday. We're going to grow old together and embarrass our grandchildren with how much we still love each other. The picture he painted was so beautiful, so perfect, that Alara felt her heart might burst. A little brother or sister? If you want, Marcus said, suddenly uncertain. I mean, I know Leo is young and you're just getting your life back on track, and I don't want to pressure. She silenced him with a kiss. I want, she said simply. Not right away, but someday. I want Leo to have siblings. I want to have your babies. Marcus's smile was radiant. Our babies? Our babies, she agreed. They made love again, slower this time, with a tenderness that spoke of forever and family and all the dreams they were building together. And when they finally fell asleep, wrapped in each other's arms, Alara dreamed of Christmas mornings with more children, of birthday parties and school plays and all the beautiful chaos of a full, happy life. The next morning they woke to the sound of Alara's phone ringing. Leo's sleepover had been a success, but he was ready to come home, chattering excitedly about his adventures and asking if Marcus had missed him. We missed you so much, Marcus assured him, lifting him into a bear hug that made Leo giggle. Did you have fun without me? Leo asked, his innocent question making both adults exchange a look full of shared secrets. We had a very nice evening, Alara said diplomatically. But it's much better now that you're home. And it was true. As much as she'd treasured their night alone, the apartment felt complete again with Leo's laughter filling the rooms. This was their family, messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. As they decorated Christmas cookies later that afternoon, Leo chattering about Santa and presents while Marcus helped him steady the frosting tube, Alara felt a peace settle over her that she'd never experienced before. This was what happiness looked like. This was what home meant. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of losing it. Because some things she was learning were strong enough to last forever.